I think it's sometimes been quite tricky to keep track over the Scott Lawrence era, over the last few years of American rugby, how it's going. It's been very, very back and forth. You've had some talks of investment into the men's programs. You've had some talks of MLR growing. You've had an awful lot of MLR contracting. You've had campaigns where the USA look like they're really building something. Then the next campaign, it will be back to square one and they won't be there. You've had a lot of talks of players thinking of playing for them, they're not playing for them. You've had a lot of players like seeming to have good breakthroughs, then slightly disappearing and not being there in future campaigns, and then them kind of coming back. And like, it's been quite disjointed, I think. And the really pleasing thing, from an American point of view, these last 2 weeks, is they've put a team on the park that has been more than consistent, that has been more than competitive, with Portugal and Zimbabwe, two very good rising Tier 2 nations, and has produced 2 wins back-to-back with a largely unchanged team, a team that feels settled and balanced and together.
The most important thing from a USA perspective as well, when you look at both Portugal and Zimbabwe and how they both approach these 2 games, is they are 2 teams who like to chuck the ball about.
Yeah.
They are 2 teams who have absolute gas out wide, who want to encourage that kind of almost sevens style of play, you know? And the USA have shut that down and refused to get involved in that. And I think that is such a mature thing. And we'll get into some of the game management later on as we go. But I think that is such an endorsement of not only the USA's pack, but the halfbacks that they had on, both the starters and off the bench. Because, yeah, Zimbabwe really approached this looking to like run every kick back that they could, you know, only kicking when they were literally on their try line or there was nobody in support in front of them.
Or if it was Mifura and he just spotted a chance to chip kick.
Of course, he loves one of those,
He loves a
doesn't
chip kick.
Yeah, he's been watching a lot of Matthew Jalabert highlights, I think. But the USA kept playing to their strengths, you know, because they have a pack who can take it to these teams, you know, who want to throw it wide. They can instead kind of go, it's not up the jumper, it's far from up the jumper, but they will like look for those tip-ons and look for like big crashes over the gain line and look to just put you under the squeeze in your own 22.
I think it's the thing that's really encouraging about this USA team is that they have a distinctive style of play, but it's not built around any individual strengths, if that makes sense, right? They're not going, we've got a huge forward pack, we're just going to lean into that. It's not they're going, we've just got AJ McGinty, as has been the case for a lot of the last decade, where they've gone, we've got one brilliant player, we're going to build everything around him. And in previous teams, frankly, you've had the likes of Blaine Scully and Chris Wiles and so on, and they built all of their back play around getting 1 or 2 talents and Gwen Years of the world space. And it doesn't feel like it's unbalanced in that way. It feels like what they're looking to do is hard work, to squeeze you, to outlast you, outwork you, to put you into frustrating situations. The likes of Corey Daniel are just like brilliant players. His work rate is incredibly high. His technique is excellent. Obviously,
he's a beast.
Everyone brings a big kind of wrestling background and so on. But he's just someone with incredible upper body strength. And when you put him in positions, you get him working as hard as he does, he will produce you results. And they have those players right across the pack. I thought both the second row played really well at the weekend. And that front row continues to work themselves.
It's the spine of the team is very, very strong. Even with this week, they had Capelli Pifoletti out injured, unfortunately. But like when he comes back in, he's huge for them. They've got Corey Daniel. They've got the likes of like Perry Mayo and Connor Mooneyham on the wings, who will come on to Mitch Wilson as well in that back 3.
King.
Yeah, of course. And for me, the best player in the USA team is Ruben de Haas at 9, who's been playing for them for a good 8 or 9 years now and has been such a consistent player. But there's so much love about his game. His box kicking is absolutely massive and was huge in the management of this game. I think his leadership as well, just generally, he brings a lot from that perspective.
His absolute calmness in every situation.
But also, the pass that he has on him is, honestly, he's like one of the best scrum halves in Tier 2 rugby, if not international, in terms of just like the sheer, like, in terms of just the sheer range he has on his pass. So the opening try for Connie Mooneyham, where it's one of the 8th wonder of the world for me, is the sheer chaos that is the Zimbabwe scrum. That seemingly every time there's a knock on, referee goes, you know, puts his arm out. It's just like, they just spin the wheel and just go like, what's it going to be this time, lads? Penalty to us, penalty to them. Channel ball for us, channel ball 1 for them, maybe?
They've got the green and white stripes, and if it lands on green, they're going to be dominant. If it lands on white, they're going to be the worst scrum you've ever seen in your life.
It's crazy.
You can't keep track of how good this scrum is. It's insane. Because it won't even be like, oh, okay, they've changed their props, they've got this guy on, and that's going to lead to their scrum improving. Or it won't be, oh, okay, on like scrum, really important scrums on either try line, they keep everyone in, but in middling situations, they'll maybe, their flankers will break off early and stuff. There's absolutely no logic to how good their scrum is.
And they've got like Mopunga from Bourgois and Kundiona from Northampton Saints.
Yeah.
So those are two really good props. And obviously, we're huge Matthew Mandioma stands here.
He was on the bench this week, but yeah.
Yeah, but they have a huge front row. So yeah, bizarre one. Anyway, they spin the wheel and it comes up with free kick to USA. So Ruben de Haas is alert the whole time. He goes straight to the back and takes the quick tap. And obviously defending a 5-metre scrum is quite difficult. You have to rely a little bit when there's a huge open side, because this is midfield. You have to rely a little bit on A, your flankers being able to get out, B, your scrum half and which way they're going to go. Obviously, the scrum half's on the right-hand side looking up the field. So, you have to kind of like leave a little bit more space there. Because you can kind of trust your scrum half to break off, especially because 5 metres from your own try line, you're not going to risk him going to the boot of the scrum, not necessarily. And so you have to slightly rely on, the ball's going to be in the air a little bit. We have to use that time to move. Those couple of seconds are critical. So Ruben de Haas just cuts that down by going, instead of we're going to put this through the hands, I'm going to charge for 2 or 3 steps really hard at the line on the right-hand side, because again, he could go either which way here. The scrum half's irrelevant because he's got to drop back to the try line because it's a free kick. And instead, he goes to the right-hand side, charge for a couple of steps, and throws an absolute peach over the top to Mooneyham. Sigake just moves in ever so slightly to move in half a channel.
Edward Sigake is having to watch the backs as they're starting to flash round. He can't just stay on his opposite number because otherwise so much space will be created in the middle. The ball goes straight over his head, though I still think there's an actual chance he could have scored off this because it's Edward Sigake and he can score for literally any chance, even if it's a ball going over his head to his opposite number who's going over the try line unopposed. But it's an absolutely phenomenal seed. Connor Mooneyham holds his depth and holds his width really, really well. Like, too often you see wingers come in or just get really flat on the try line because they just
too
want to go
excited. Yeah,
they just want to grab that ball and put it down immediately. They want to be as close. And actually, what he wants to do here is give as big a range for de Haas to get it right as possible. Right? That because Mooneyham has held his depth, it means that essentially de Haas has about 5 metres grace that he can throw this into. Where if Mooneyham is stood flat, that means he's got 1 metre. Plus, and it looks perfect, partly because Mooneyham allows it to be perfect.
It would allow in that point as well, and give away the game that he wants a miss pass. It would allow Sigake to then fly up, and put pressure because, let's say that B-Sag catches the ball here, like he'd have to pass it forward in order to ship it on, so he doesn't give away the game at all. It's a beautiful try from 5 metres with 1 pass by the USA.
What a fine B-Sag is, by the way.
Yeah.
21 years old, so he picked up quite a decent number of caps in that time, but he's just like a proper centre, He's a sort of player who won't get any headlines, won't get many headlines at least, but considering the main headline of this USA team, I think, is that fly half has been a problem position for them for a very long time. But you go right back to the 80s when they first start to kind of grow on the world stage as an international force, right? These USA teams. Fly half has always been a bit of an issue. They've produced 1 or 2 fly halves who then had to hold that jersey for 10 years. There's never really been a moment in American rugby history where they've had multiple good fly halves. And I think for a while, because AJ McGinty's been so injury prone as he's got into his mid-30s, that has felt like a bit of a concern for them. There's no plan underneath him. But Chris Holdenbeck has been excellent. Luke Harty we'll get on to, but was sublime off the bench.
Yeah.
And then they've also just loaded over Jack Walsh, who will play 10 or 15, but is going to be such a get for them, is currently nursing an injury and in the process of moving club, so you assume he'll come in for November. But that's a brilliant get for them. And you've then got 3 very different types of fly half, and you've got in BSAG a centre who is very, very solid, and you've also got in Perry Mayo a winger who can finish. And you're starting to put the pieces on the board, right? In terms of a reliable team. And it's less about finding superstars and more what this USA team is building is not, here's some brilliant individual talents who we're going to try and round out the rest of their game. It's, here's a load of guys who will work really hard, who are just really know their jobs inside out and are proper exponents of their position. Perry Mayo's finish on his try is brilliant, is really well taken out of kind of nowhere. But broadly, the most impressive thing about him in his 2 caps so far has been his positioning. It's been him always holding his like width on his wing, both offensively and defensively. His ability to just drop back and cover the backfield, like stuff like that, is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, and having B-Sag as a bit more of a ball player at 12 is pretty huge, because they've also got, obviously, Tavita Lopete. Of course, I was a big fan of San Diego Legion, of course. He never quite got to, I don't think he really got much opportunity to partner Matt Anonu in the centres, unfortunately. However, I do think having him play at 13 is a bit more effective for the USA. Having him play off a ball player, and you can run those kind of crash lines off him, because he is a very strong player, you know, Lopete. So, I'm really excited. Obviously, this centre combo is very much in its infancy.
Yes.
But as time goes on by the World Cup, they could have something there. Especially, as you say, if they introduce the likes of a McGinty coming back in or a Jack Walsh coming in at 15.
Which would be huge. Like, the amount of options they now have coming in across that back line is really starting to change them. And it's another thing, right? It's like MLS shift their focus this year, even though there's now only 4 teams in it. I was going for an exaggeration there. I haven't exaggerated by much. But their focus is now on producing American players and giving those players opportunities. And you see that in the likes of Ethan McVeigh, right, who creates that final try at the end. It's a brilliant pass. It's like, it feels a bit like something I watched Gareth Edwards doing, like a grainy highlights reel from the 70s.
So, looking a little bit at Zimbabwe now as well, how they got into the game. First and foremost, look, we've got this far into the video, we have to talk about it. Big Eddie, our boy. Edward Sig scored one of the tries of the year in this game. Honestly, like, this defies analysis. What can we even say about this? Like, he trips over 2 American players and one of his own players with this sidestep.
He gets it with literally no space. Any other winger in the world just tries to keep contact and stay in the field of play and hope that having a forward alongside him helps get to ground early. Edward Sig is not any winger in the world. And he goes for 1 step inwards and 1 step back outwards, which is so ballsy.
He's beaten that defender so hard that he can afford to go back on the outside.
But the sheer instincts of this, he is genuinely one of the best finishers I have seen in the last decade.
What's incredible is, when you look at this reverse angle, how little distance he's travelled in these couple of side steps, and yet they can't tackle him. It's honestly like, you've heard of ankle snapper steps, but this is something else.
I wonder what his knees are going to be like when he's 50. Like, is he just going to knacker them out over the next few years, or is he so elasticated?
I worry for everybody else's knees.
Like, yes, I mean, Josh Gardner on the Blood and Mud podcast last week described him as Shane Williams with swag, and I think that is absolutely spot on. That is like
he's
the best description I've heard of him.
I think
his little celebration afterwards, his dive, everything about
him and Mafura often together going for the celebrations.
So I know the Ospreys have been looking for a winger, and I know he's looking for a pro contract. And I'm going to start publicly campaigning Mark Jones, just as Steve Tandy is watching us appeal for Angus O'Brien to get in the Wales squad. Mark Jones, sign Edward Sig.
The real deal.
Just get in touch. I'm sure he's got an agent. I'm sure at the very least you can just drop an email to like Zimbabwe Rugby Union at zimbabwerugbyunion.za and just say, hey, hi, my name is Mark Jones. I would like to sign Edward Sig to my professional rugby team, the Ospreys. We will offer him the entire budget of the Welsh region. And goodbye.
And half the budget of the Dragons as well. There. Edward Sig is the coolest man in rugby. I'm telling you that now. Like, it's not even close. And that's only half looking at his style of play.
He's so good. He's so good. There was an upset on the cards here. At one stage, Zimbabwe led in the second half, but they're still a team who's really starting to develop. And they went from that steady rise, from like growing into being the best team in Africa outside of South Africa. And they were dominant everything below Namibia, and then they beat Namibia, and that was kind of 1 step up. And they are now experiencing the next step up. And they are competing much, much closer than they should be, frankly. In fact, they almost beat Tonga. They had the USA, like, they were ahead at 50-odd minutes, and it took Luke Carty with some outstanding game management to close this out, and a couple of late tries. But Zimbabwe are so far ahead of schedule for where they should be. And you've got to hope that there's a few of this generation, the Matthew Mandiomas, are pretty old now. You know, he's like 34. And you would hope a few of those, and Ian Pryor, who was injured, missed this game. But I thought Bruce Houston had a great game in at fly half, like slotted in seamlessly. You didn't notice
another Berg One boy, of course.
Former Ulster, I think got one game for Ulster, or didn't
Cornish
get any for
Pirates
Ulster.
as well. Very experienced player.
But they've got some depth there, is the point. And they are just like building at a rate that they shouldn't. Like, You look at Chile and Portugal, right, and how much longer it took them when their generations started coming through to get to the standard here where they're competing. It took Portugal probably an extra 2 years. It took Chile maybe 3 extra years, and they're only really starting to take the next step beyond that now. Chile to regularly beating the likes of Romania and like knowing how to close out games against Hong Kong and so on. Zimbabwe are getting really, really close. I love the Zimbabwe team. They are kind of my favourite to watch. They are each week, once you lay out obviously the big fixtures, the likes of the New Zealand Islands, the France Australias, the ones that you love to watch. And then obviously as a Welsh fan, you kind of look out for that. But then the next fixture I'm looking out for every week is like when Zimbabwe. Play.
However, as you mentioned, like Zimbabwe put the USA in a game where, again, like very easily they could have panicked and slipped up and a big upset could have been on the cards, right? However, this was just such a satisfying, calm and sensible performance by the Americans. So, as I mentioned, like I can't sing Ruben de Haas's praises enough with his kicking game, with him just like keeping the pressure on Zimbabwe. But you mentioned earlier Luke Carty coming off the bench and what a masterful performance he put in, where like every single time when there was like penalties given away, when there was to spin the wheel and there's a scrum penalty to the USA, whatever, it's like there's not a moment of doubt. It's like we're kicking this penalty. We are just going to move the target very slightly for them. I think like Luke Carty just put them into the right areas, along with like Ethan McVeigh, as you mentioned, had a very, very good game off the bench. Just the game management of the USA generally was just superb.
Like Ethan McVeigh having got very used to that role, having played a lot off the bench, like he's almost become a specialist number 21, like a Tate McDermott style.
Yeah.
And Luke Carty likewise. I think that axis of Hildenbeck starting and him coming on really worked. I thought Carty was generally outstanding. I thought the way in which he kicked more generally, but also when he chose to run, his decision making across the board was pretty exceptional. And the USA really need that. You need those players. And ultimately, I think him coming on, and more broadly that bench coming on, was the difference between the two teams. Was the USA were able to shut this down, and Zimbabwe's sheer flair and madness really dragged them into a game, and them having a good enough maul and forward pack to kind of get them into situations where they can score extra points. But the USA kept working. They remained sensible. The fact that they have built this team who are just really sound, rather than like the freakish talents that Zimbabwe have, is going to stand them in good stead.
It's what they need.
And it's going to lead to them winning more games more consistently. And it might be that when Zimbabwe win games, maybe they're more likely to cause like, a major upset or more likely to win a game by a bigger margin. But the USA are going to win more games more consistently for the basis they're putting in with Scott Lawrence. And hopefully over the following year then, now this is starting to be laid down, they can remain consistent in this because it's been quite up and down in American rugby over the last few years. It's been a real roller coaster. Like it's probably the only nation that's more up and down than Welsh rugby, which I mean that as saying an awful lot. Like my sympathies go to every American fan of rugby, and admiration as well. But I feel like they're starting to lay down the foundations to then build something on top of this. And I think this is the better way around to have done it. And I've had bits of this in past where you felt like, oh, they're building this. Just got to hope that this remains. They hold out into the third game of the championship and then beyond.
Very well said. And great that Rufus McLean wasn't playing as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. The further away he is from the team, the better. And
Indeed.
I don't mean in Paris.
Indeed. Well, thank you for watching this. I would like to regard that we did this because we wanted to, not because someone was being very rude to us in the comments.
No, we weren't. Well, we weren't going to cover this because the USA won, and that's why we didn't cover the last.
Because apparently we hate them.
Because we hate them.
Yeah. Despite having, I don't think ever said a negative word against them, but we hate them with a passion. Apparently.
No USA Portugal, got it.